Hi, Tech Camp 2020. What would be more appropriate for Tech Camp than for us to be recording and doing our videos live? So, what I have for you today is I want to share with you about one of my favorite programs, which is National History Day. I have been involved with National History Day now for quite some time actually. I started with the program in 2005 with my students, and I have now found my way back to the program. I've continually stayed in the program, but I have found the program to be very beneficial to myself as a teacher, to my students as learners in every area, and even into their adulthood. Even now, with so much going on around them, and learning how to judge bias and how to understand what are valid sources, what would be propaganda or opinionated sources, I believe has been so significant. So what we want to talk about now is History Alive, research, writing, and presentation. So some things that we need for that. There is a huge gap between college and high school students. Students do not have presentation skills. Students do not know how to do scholarly research. Students do not understand how to prove an argument. Students do not understand how to choose topics. Students do not write on a regular basis. And this is something that is important to me. So what are the benefits of PBLs in the classroom? Well, a PBL is a student-based, not teacher-based learning style. A PBL allows students to make choices. How many times in school did you actually choose what you researched? Usually you're given a topic, or at best a list of here are your three choices, not with this type of PBL. A PBL allows students to be the expert, not the teacher. I love the fact that a lot of times my students know more about what they're researching than I do. They teach me things every single time, something new that I did not know. A PBL creates long-term learning skills by reaching higher depth of knowledge levels. Students have the opportunity to go deeper and to think about these analytical things that we want them to see, and even to synthesize, to break it apart and put it back together, which is huge with preparing for their future careers. The best way I know to do this is with National History Day. National History Day has been a part of my life as a teacher, as I said, for 15 years, and the growth that I've seen from my students in the classroom is absolutely exponential. I will tell you, this year alone, I have had students, even despite COVID, who have done some amazing things. They have talked with teachers, students, librarians, primary sources, authors, historians, college professors, all across the nation. In fact, we have been in contact with people in New York, California, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Florida, just to name a few, and those are all without my help. This is where students themselves have gone outside of the little box that we call learning, and it is because of this program. So what is National History Day? National History Day, if you really get down to it, is painless, and they have the most amazing resources that are all free. Everything is free except for contest registration, t-shirts, things like that. The format is made for you. There are rubrics and guides that are available. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can use this format in your classroom as a research skeleton so that students can move from it and they can kind of fill that skeleton out. Students will learn skills that they otherwise might not learn into college. Every project comes with an annotated bibliography. Students have to learn how to fully cite sources. When I first tell my students to cite sources, usually I'm lucky if I get a link from the top of the web page. That's not a full citation. And we don't want our students to go to college or to go forward thinking that is how you give credit to a source. You can't just say, I got it at Google. That's not a source. And this is something that they will learn through these skills. Students who participate in National History Day will have better research skills than students who participate in AP. Now, having said that, I teach Advanced Placement U.S. History. I have taught Advanced Placement U.S. History now for a total of 17 years, and I stand by this. I helped make my students better researchers when I became an NHD teacher and not just an AP teacher. Do you have to teach AP to do this? Absolutely not. In fact, my husband has used this with regular students. He's used it in his U.S. history class. He's used it in his world history class. He's actually used it in a world religions class, and their projects turned out to be fantastic. I learned so much from those projects. I've seen this in English classes. I have actually seen it with a science teacher as well. And there are so many topics in math that about people and things and theorems that have changed the way we look at society. And so why limit our scope to just history? Everything is embodied in history. Every passion that a child could have. And why just the main academics? Why couldn't they research something connected to music or to art, architecture, you name it? And so every year there is a theme, and this helps students center their topics. It helps them to find kind of the meat of their topic so that it doesn't just turn into a biography about a person or a Wikipedia page about an event. So this shows you the topics for the past several years: leadership and legacy, taking a stand, conflict and compromise, triumph and tragedy. This past year's breaking barriers, and our national contest will be finishing up next week. PHS has a current total of 9 projects competing. GHS has several projects competing as well, so can't wait to hear how those kids do. But this year's theme is going to be communication, the key to understanding. Now, I think that is such a timely theme right now, because don't we need to understand each other? This is something that if you're interested in, I'm going to take you to a different screen. Let's see, that's not the one. So you can go in and look at the annual theme for teachers. This gives you last year's breaking barriers. In the next week, I can tell you that the 2021 theme will be loaded. And in fact, earlier I searched for it and actually found it. So let's see, let's do 2021. There we go, theme narrative NHD. And so it is there. This is it that's available, and there will be a theme book posted within the next week. But it gives you communication and history, the key to understanding. And it talks about how the theme is broken down. First of all, how do we communicate? And then it asks students to think about the keys to understanding communication. Is there miscommunication? What happens when there's misunderstanding? And so this is very crucial with these students, and I think it's very beneficial to them as well. And then it has a link that you can use to gain to the theme, and also a link to take you to the rule book. And a sample of that contest rule book is here, and you can download that. And it walks you through so many of the steps of what we're going to be talking about today. The rules for the categories, what is expected with different projects, how it will be judged if you choose to go that route. But honestly, to me, History Day is so much more than just the judging. And so let's talk about what that so much more is. So step 1, it's important for your students to choose topics. Suggested topics are provided by NHD with that theme book, which will be released by the time the class comes out. I encourage students to contact the Mississippi Department of Archives and History for topics. In fact, our state director for History Day is the teacher liaison with the Mississippi Department of Archives and History. There are so many things there that are available. We have fantastic museums all over the state. To give you just one example, William Winter, a former governor from Mississippi, his papers, along with many others, are located there in the archives. So I had one particular student one year who learned about the William Winter papers, and she used those. The way that she used them was to allow her to find a topic through his papers, and she learned about his education program. Now, some of you watching may be old enough that you were a part of the loan forgiveness through the William Winter Institute. You would go to school for 4 years, and then you would teach in a high needs area, and your loan would be forgiven as long as you worked in the state of Mississippi. And so that was her project. She talked about how that broke barriers for students in Mississippi who normally could not afford that opportunity. Students can speak to local librarians and others for ideas. One particular topic that I had this year that is very near and dear to my heart, and we know has been chosen to be featured by the African American Smithsonian Museum, so that just came out today, is a project on Kathleen McElwain. Now, you may have noticed that the public library is named the Kathleen McElwain Library. There is a Kathleen McElwain Library in Jackson County. You probably had no idea why it was ever named that. You see, Kathleen McElwain was a librarian there in the 50s and 60s, and she was the first person who integrated the public library. She didn't make a big deal about it. She just started to allow African Americans to come in. This little lady in her 20s faced up against the Sovereignty Commission, who came from Jackson, Mississippi, and demanded to know why she wasn't protecting segregation. And she said that everybody paid taxes and everybody deserved to use the library. So this topic was found by two of her great-granddaughters, and they have since interviewed. She's passed, but they've interviewed the first African-American employee of the library system, a lady by the name of Julia Holmes, and she was employed by Kathleen McElwain. She was so inspired by Miss McElwain that she went on to college to become a librarian. And so at any rate, this is where two students picked something they were passionate about, and they found out things that otherwise would be eventually lost to history. Now, it doesn't have to be something like that. I always encourage students to share their interest, and I guide them to appropriately chosen topics. Teachers can require students to choose something related to their class content. I mentioned that my husband did this with his world religions class, and he required them to choose a religion-based topic. And so I encourage them to share their interest, and it will help us to get to where they want to go. They didn't have to be completely religion-based, but in some way it had to be tied in to a different religion around the world or religious faith. All right, so what is their second step? The second step is to get students started on research. Use Magnolia, use Google Scholar, use archives, college libraries. I always get my students to start searching both the resources that are available through Ancestry Classroom. You can apply for a grant and get that for free for research. I also encourage them to research through the sovereignty files just to show them some of the things that are out there that they can find. Both of those have really good search tools. We also look at things like Chronicling America, which is a program through the Library of Congress, as well as others. There's several ways they can do citations. I usually encourage my students to do EasyBib because they have familiarity with it. Noodle Tools is fantastic, and it's free through NHD for your first year. The third step that is always so hard for students is to take all of that information that they've gathered and to synthesize it into a condensed project. I teach them how to save and cite significant images and documents that they can use for their project. This is another way to teach them how to do research, is to teach them how to set up these skills. I use Google Classroom for this. It's the perfect place. We make Google Docs, and they can even share these with each other. This also allows me to go back and see the history of the work that's been done, because so often students will come in and say, well, I did all the work. And then the partner will come in and say, well, I did all the work. And I can look back at those documents and I can see where maybe this one did a lot of work and this one erased it and changed the way it was done. Or maybe this one never has any evidence that they did work. And so things that will help you, these must be cited. Students should break information into basically 4 areas. I always tell them, what were things like before? Because if we talk about something bringing change, and that's really what most of these topics center about, is change, then why? How does it change? Their thesis, teaching them how to write a thesis. This is a skill that they have to have for everything they're going to do in life. Whether it's a letter they write to their condo board, they have to have a central idea. How does this connect to the theme? If you can't research something and connect it to the theme, you haven't chosen a topic well. All of us have been there, probably in college, when you did not choose the right topic for your interest, or you didn't choose the right topic for your thesis, and this is where they find themselves. Also, how does this affect things immediately, and how does it affect things today? Some things have an immediate impact that's huge, and in the long run, it changes things. Some things change very slowly. People don't often know. The thing that was compelling to me about Kathleen McElwain is many people did not know what she had done in Pascagoula, but there is evidence in primary sources that it was done. It's mentioned in the local school board notes. It's mentioned in the Sovereignty Commission files. And many of the general public, it was kind of swept under the rug. Our kids also don't understand what it's like to grow up in this modern internet-free our internet zone without all of these technology things that we have. They don't understand what it's like to get your information from the newspaper. They don't understand that everybody didn't have a cell phone. Everything wasn't instantaneous. The news only came on once or twice. 6 o'clock news is what you would be watching for. That's when your information would come short of something absolutely huge. So some suggested sources that you might use that would help you. I do use Schoology to set up, and I have in the past, and now I mainly use Google Classroom. But both of these, there's some way that you need to organize your students, and so that you can help them organize their things. This fourth step is that NHD website. So in the past, NHD websites have been made through Weebly. That has been changed to NHD Web Central. Also, I have some samples that are here for you, as well as a documentary. Students can also do performance, research paper, and exhibit. And we were very fortunate this year. We actually had students to place in all of those categories and to qualify for nationals at both the high school and the middle school, at the high schools and Calmer Middle School, I should be specific. So is the juice worth the squeeze? I'll be honest with you, it's work. But what isn't? Everything that we do that we want to do well is going to be work. And so that's what we have to look about for our kids. For me, it means improved participation. It means my students have a meaningful experience in my classroom, even the ones who hate history. It means they connect with something that they enjoy. It means improved student interactions. One of my favorite things when I run into students from past, a lot of times they will tell me something they liked about my classroom or didn't like. And, that is part of the game. But what I always love is that almost everyone can still tell me what their NHD project was and how important it was to them. Even the ones who will say, well, I didn't do a very good job, but I really thought it was pretty cool. They learned something from it. And I don't solicit those comments because I just don't think that's very fair. Kind of the last thing I would like to take you to is I would like to show you another site, which is NHD Silent Heroes. This is a site that I think you can use in any class to teach your students about sacrifice. One of the things that young people have very little concept of today is what sacrifice means. This is part of a project that I've been able to do with National History Day. And National History Day does so many things like this that benefit students. Now, if you come to this Silent Heroes page, it says students and teachers uncover the stories of individuals who made the ultimate sacrifice for freedom. And so you can go to About Us, where it tells you all about the program, or you can go to the gallery. One of the things that I have absolutely loved about National History Day is it has opened doors for my students and I. I've applied for 3 of their programs. I've applied for 2 of their programs. I've been accepted into one. The other I did not get in. And then I was actually picked to do a different program. And so you can look up different wars. And you can look up specifically your state or any state of interest and the branch of service if you're interested, and you can find out about Americans who have served and died, particularly overseas, from your area. These are great things to use with students and discussion. Now, these are specific individuals that are from Mississippi. This first one from Moss Point, Mississippi was one of my students. He traveled with Gaucher Assistant Principal Katie Gilbert to Normandy, France, where he studied a family member and his sacrifice in Normandy. To show you the second one I want to mention is George M. Moore. I traveled 2 years ago to France with a student of mine, Allison Strength, and she researched George M. Moore from Meridian, Mississippi. The neat thing is he was from Meridian, but he actually was a Pascagoula resident when he joined the war after Pearl Harbor and chose to fight. And so he is listed as one of the dead for Jackson County, Mississippi. And then the last individual that I have a personal contact to, we actually researched last year. This was a student of mine, Alondra Reyes, who is going to be attending the Naval Academy this fall. And she was inspired to go to the Naval Academy after researching about this young man, Ernest Chester Perez, and his sacrifice in war. Now, there are several others. This one is very interesting. This was actually done by somebody not from Mississippi. This is about a young African-American man who is a second-class seaman who experienced great racial prejudice. And it makes for a good conversation right now with a lot of the things that are going on. Here you can see primary sources, including a census record. It tells you about his military experience. It tells you about different tragedy that he faced. It shows you some different things, his military card here. And so you can see where a lot of efforts have been put into these. And this young man who probably never received a memorial was memorialized because of this program. And so I just wanted to show you this because there are so many different things that this can be used for. So what I want to challenge you to do is, how can you bring the past alive in your classroom? It doesn't matter what you teach. Young people need to feel connected with the history of it, whether it is math, whether it is science, whether it is English, whether it is music, whether it is art. Whatever it is, even PE, we need to feel connected to the past. And there are so many ways to do that. And with History Day, this provides opportunity that otherwise would not be available to our students. So I hope you enjoyed this. You are welcome to email me at egreen@pgsd.ms. There is no teacher in Mississippi that has been involved with National History Day as long as I have. In fact, I think I've been involved with it as long as any of our coordinators or people connected to coordinating currently. And so I would love to help you make this come alive in your classroom and to teach you more about the resources. But I hope you enjoyed Tech Camp, and hopefully we will see you in person maybe next year. All right. Thank you. Bye.